Welcome, friends. This is Hamilcar with Hamilcar Gaming, and I'm back here again with Ken, and we're looking at the second half of his character creation discussion, where the first half we looked at what I would consider to be kind of the soft side of character creation, which is getting into his inspiration, background, personality, and really the depth that makes the character. And I really encourage people to start there before actually getting into the numbers. But now we're actually into looking at the numbers on the character sheet. And so for the most part, a lot of the set templates in the player's handbook will tell you what you should do, things like hit points and things like that. But the places where you have decisions can be really interesting, where if you've already established a good foundation in a lot of that soft information, you can make choices that make sense to that. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kenny, and we're going to go and look through some of the choices that he made in his character and see how that ties in with what we've already discussed about the background and personality for his monk.
Hi, everybody. So as we were saying before, well, let me just start over. In my mind, when you're actually getting down in the nuts and bolts, the most important thing is going to be your ability scores. So that's where I started off. And Hamilcar told me when I started off with this that we're going to be looking at more of the point buy system in the D&D 5e 5th edition. And I found this handy little thing on Reddit, the D&D subreddit, of all the possible combinations that you could get with the ability purchase array. I ended up going with 15, 15, 12. Let me get back to it. 15, 15, 12, 10, 10, 9. And just a note to anyone starting out there, I think having a less than average score really leads to a lot of fun role playing. So that's why I picked one that had a 9 in it, because 10 is supposed to be average. Mm-hmm. So of course, with what we've been talking about, my kind of quirky, doesn't really know people very well, I put my 9 in charisma.
Makes sense.
I'm going to be playing that up as much as I can. As a human, going with the variant style so that we can get, instead of a +1 to everything, we get +1 and 2 stats and then a feat. I did the +1 in Dex and Wisdom because those are really the two main stats for a monk. I was kind of doing some min-maxing on that aspect.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah. So then that left me with the 12 and the 10 and the 10. Monks, because they kind of know the martial arts, they don't really need strength because they have the Dex and the Wisdom to determine where to hit you. So my strength is a 10. So despite the idea of I'm doing martial arts, I'm not really strong. Mm-hmm. So I put the strength as a 10, the intelligence as a 10, and I gave myself a little bit more con because kind of the thinking of it as just like a video game, my character is going to be out fighting in the front a little bit more. So I'm going to need a little bit more sturdiness. So that's why I put the 12 in con.
Okay, sounds good.
So that's kind of that going on there. And then that bleeds out into everything else. As a monk, I get proficiency in a tool, so I chose Mason's tools, and that goes back to the Order of the Yellow Rose. Some of them will be Mason, some of them will be creating tapestry, so I went with the Masonry and the actual crafting and sculpting of stone. Okay. Is why I picked that. And I think the Artisan tools are really just a neat flavor to add to your character. You rarely ever use them in game, but it's just a neat thing to be like, oh yeah, my guy knows how to sculpt.
Oh, you think you won't be using them in game?
Well, I'm sure I'll find a way to use it, but in most aspects, I mean, how often are you going to use masonry tools? But then also I can come back on this and be like, well, since I know masonry, and we're looking at this statue, and
we'll
it's some
just
puzzle,
have to see.
Yeah, we'll see. So that's kind of what's going on with the tools there. Everything else on this section here is really just what comes with being a monk. Talking more about the skills and the reason I picked certain proficiencies. Acrobatics, I'm a monk. I've been training myself in martial arts. That made sense. Perception, as really the perception, the stealth, investigation, all, in my mind, tied back to I'm working in the archives. So I'm going to need to be quiet because people are reading. So that's why I picked stealth. My perception and investigation are going to be helping me find certain books people are looking for, or see if someone is looking and they might need to find a book. So that's kind of the thought process of all that character work we did that came into choosing why I picked these certain things. And then Acolyte kind of led me towards more of a history base and a religion base, because I've spent all that time with the books, reading up on Grandmaster Cain and the histories around it, reading up on the religion of Ilmater and my whole order of monks. That's kind of the reasoning that I went into those skill proficiencies. Did you want to add something?
No, I think a lot of these look really good. Yeah, I think all of your choices fit really well. I don't think there's anything I'd change about it, so I think you did a good job there.
All right. This is one neat thing that we're kind of going to have to go off of here. My main weapon I picked is a joystick. I might be pronouncing that wrong. I'm sorry, Internet, if I am. The reasoning I picked that is it was the favored weapon of Grandmaster Cain.
Good reasoning.
Yeah, it's these here. It's a short quarterstaff. So like this guy, you see he's got a full-length quarterstaff, and then this, it's kind of like a walking stick, and it's a certain fighting style. So in essence, I basically put in the stats for a quarterstaff, if that's okay with you, my DM. So 1d6, I didn't know if we wanted to make that 1d4. It's kind of up to you, since it's a little bit smaller, but it is heavy wood.
I think I'm fine with 1d6.
All right, cool. So yeah, that's kind of the weird thing there. And talking about the weapons, I also got a dagger and darts, just because those also were favored weapons of Grandmaster Cain. Coming down into just more equipment, it's pretty standard. I've got the Mason's tools, the weapons there. All this here is pretty much just Adventurer's Pack, which I assume as I left the monastery they gave me. And then there's a neat thing in the player's handbook that I think every character should roll on, because it gives you so much fun. And this is just me talking, but it gives you so much fun to do character-wise and role-playing. It's on page 160 and 161, and it's the trinkets chart. It's 1 through 100, you roll a D percentile, and it gives you just a random thing that is like this random little trinket that you've got with you, and then you can create backstory around it. I rolled on it. I got 43, which is a tiny silver bell without a clapper. And I kind of was talking to Hamilcar about that, and he gave me this amazing idea that I'm going to run with. Kind of going back to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies that anyone our age grew up on.
Go Ninja, go Ninja, go!
But there was the scene where they had to. It was the second one, The Secret of the Ooze, and they had to take all the bells off of the dummy without making them ring. So then, in my mind, this silver bell was from one of those. Like, I had to do that to move from a brother to a disciple, which is two different ranks here. Brother is the lowest rank in the order, and then disciple would be the next one up. Like I said, I'm young, I'm still a little bit naive, so I didn't want to go up higher than that. But to go from brother to disciple, we had to finish this and some other tasks. And I did finish it. And then Grandmaster Cain, before, like, he helped with my training, another reason why I'm obsessed with him, he gave me this bell as a keepsake. So I always keep it with me, especially now that Grandmaster Cain is no longer on this mortal coil, this mortal realm.
Right.
I keep it with me as that, and even though it's broken, it doesn't have the clapper anymore, so it doesn't really ring. It's still that focus totem for me. You know, something like wizards would use, they always have their focus totem. But this is for me, this is what I use to focus on when I'm meditating. I keep it in my left hand when I'm doing any of my morning exercises and evening exercises. I might even toy with the idea of when I'm putting on my hand wraps around my hands, kind of like you'd see like MMA fighters use, having it wrapped into my left hand as well.
I like it.
my character is right hand dominant, but left hand will be kind of more of my thinking hand. Also, I like juxtapositions, like I mentioned earlier, and that's just another one of having it be all left hand focused, but I'm right hand dominant. The last weird thing that we haven't discussed, I kind of mentioned it. We're using the variant human.
So you have feats, right?
Stats. So I'm able to choose 1 feat at level 1, as opposed to level 4 when you do the ability increase or feat. So the one that I chose was the Martial Adept, which basically means I get 1 superiority die and I get to choose 2 maneuvers from the Battle Master Fighter subclass.
Okay.
I read on the internet once somewhere that you get 2 martial or you get 2 superiority dies, which I thought would be great, but I understand if you DM do not want me to have 2. They come back with a short rest, so in essence it'd be basically 1 or 2 combats I'd be able to use this. The 2 maneuvers I picked were Riposte and Parry. This is going back to, I've studied under Kane, and I have studied so much under his fighting style that if an attacker misses me, I can spin my superiority die and my reaction for that turn to make an attack on him. Or, even if I wanted to, if an attacker hits me, which is parry, I can basically do the same thing. Spin my superiority die and my reaction to make that attack.
So, I see you've set it up so that no matter what happens, you can counterattack.
With only 1 superiority die, I can only do it once, unless you want to give me 2.
Unless the attacker doesn't do anything.
That's true, and it also takes up my reaction for the turn. Which, going into higher levels of Monk, my reaction is used a lot for other things as well with the key. Right. So it will come down to me kind of choosing what I want to use it for and kind of my management in that way. But it was a neat thing. Out of all the different options they had, I thought these were the 2 that fit best with the fighting style that Master Kane would have had. He's always sitting and waiting and taking advantage of weaknesses. So if you expose yourself to me when you make an attack and you hit me, then I will take that advantage and I will take a strike on you. If you come in and you miss, or I use my dexterity to get out of the way from you and it gives me an opening, I've trained in such a way martially that I will seize that opening and make a quick attack.
Cool. I like it.
But like I said, this is also my reaction. So then if I use it and then they decide to leave combat for me, I don't have my reaction to make an attack of opportunity.
Right.
So, I'm giving those up in other places.
Right. Well, Ken, I think this is really cool. The last thing I'd ask is, have you thought of a name for the character?
I have. Okay. And the names are always just kind of... I'm trying to figure out what sounds cool. I was playing originally with a lot of Welsh kind of a name, so kind of that, like, Floyd, if you think of that, would have come from Welsh, that FL, which if you're actually trying to pronounce it, would be more of like a... like there's a bit of a lisp almost. I played around with that, and I was like, it sounds really elven, and I'm playing a human. I don't want to do that. So I was just kind of like, something about more, Pelmore, Delmore, Kelmore, Quelmoore. So I went with Quelmoore.
Disciple Quelmoore. I like it a lot.
And so Disciple is my order. I don't have a last name. I was adopted as an orphan. So Disciple is my ranking, Quelmoore is my name, and then I'm of the Order of the Yellow Rose. Is my whole title.
Sounds great. Well, the last thing I kind of want to say that thank you so much for doing this with me, for really doing all the kind of planning and things, and being a good sport to answer these questions and all this work you've put into it. And I have a little bit of a surprise, but one thing that I really like to do with a new party is something that also came from the Dresden system. But once everybody has got their characters all established, we're going to do what I call a character foundation event. And what that is I want everybody to make a short 1 to 2 sentence start for some sort of adventure that they had. So your first time out of the order, something attacked you or something happened, whatever you want. You just make it up, and this this is your chance to kind of do a little mini GMing. So you make up your own little quest, and everyone else is going to make up their own little starter for a quest. And then, and typically we would do this on like flashcards. If we were in person, we may do it with something like digital documents if we're going to be playing this digitally. But then we pass it around, and everyone, not everybody in the party, but maybe 2, 3, as many as 4 people, will go in and say, this is what I did. This is how I met this other character. This is what we did. And people will add in little bits to your story, and I might add in something too. And then at the end, you close it out and say, this is how this all resolved. And the whole idea about this is that all of you as a party will be able to start the game with some history. And you can actually build some fun things as well. And I'll have a video that goes into this method and why I like it so much, and some examples from games that I played where we did it. And you can add a whole lot of fun, and it allows you to start the game where the party knows each other, and we can really kind of get into the campaign without having to worry too much of that role-playing where, why would I be adventuring with these strangers I don't know? Well, you guys will be able to write your own little stories to answer exactly that question. So the next thing I'd say is to go ahead and, with all this history and work you've put into, think about what would be a fun mini adventure that Quelmoore went on before the start of our actual campaign.
I like that. I haven't ever seen that before. It's always, my experience has always been that trope of you're a group of mercenaries and you went to the tavern to get a job, so this is a really neat way to kind of...
So, and I agree. I think sometimes it ties the GM's hands to where he has to have kind of boring hooks and I feel like it takes a couple sessions before things really get rolling. I felt like this was a really interesting way to bring the party together and to kind of get the us off on a strong foot to start the campaign and start getting into the fun story. Well, thank you for your time, Ken, and I hope everybody enjoyed this exercise. Hopefully you learned something about character inspiration and creation. And again, we'll have other videos from other players, and really there isn't any set answer to this. The main thing that I really want to focus on is that players take the time to think about these things. I think even just going through the exercise of thinking them, even if you can't answer the question immediately, if you just say, I don't know how my character would grow, but I'm going to think about it, I think what it will do, in my opinion, is make your role-playing experience much richer, and you'll actually enjoy your character more than you would if you had just used a template character from the book or used one of the more common tropes that are out there in the fantasy world. Well, I hope you had a good time, and thank you for listening.